Hello there. In today's video we'll be taking a look at this new Stormtrooper mech that I have already done a review on. Be sure to check that out and subscribe for more LEGO Star Wars reviews. But not only will we be modifying this in this video, we'll also be taking a look at the new Star Wars magazine that just came out this Wednesday in the UK and has been out for some time across other countries in Europe. And sorry to anyone in America, I don't think these magazines are actually available to you there. But I'm sure there are many ways you can pick these up, especially on Bricklink, as a load of European shops do deliver worldwide. So it might set you back a bit more than I think £4 or £5 that these magazines are, but might be worth it. Watch this video to find out. Now, the first thing that I'd like to do in this video is to customize this Stormtrooper mech to have posable joints. Now, one of the big complaints about the Star Wars mechs this year was the fact that they're using these new pieces that don't have the posable joints and are just one fixed piece that keeps the arms and legs in this bent position. For me, it's not a problem for the legs as it gives it a nice sturdy build to stand on. However, especially the arms, I would have liked to have been at least a little bit posable, and I have two methods of creating this bend. I have played around with this already on my Vader mech here. You can see it looks like something out of Toy Story, you know, Sid's room, where you have all the broken toys that are sort of misshaped and pieced together. And it does actually stand if I get it at the right angle. You can see his arm is straight out force choking someone, and his other arm is holding his lightsaber straight down. However, with one of his legs there is really not much grip holding him up, so I'll definitely be going with the better out of the two options and seeing if I can get the Trooper mech to stand. You can see here briefly that one of the new connections I've got replacing that brick is this black hinge here, and it's camouflaged with all the other pieces, but there is a black hinge piece just in the middle. You might be able to see it, and that means that he can rotate his elbow joint about 90 degrees, which is really nice. And then the other option that I went with is these pieces here. I'm not quite sure what they're called, but they're the old pieces that we use for toilet seats in most of the city sets, and I've just used a little Technic pin with a jumper on there, and it doesn't connect perfectly. I mean, just showing you, I've managed to pop it out, and this I disregarded quite quickly. But this is the connection that I did mention in my mech review. I can't remember which one now, but I have decided that today the Stormtrooper mech's going to be getting the hinge treatment, as this one does seem to fall apart and isn't the best of connections. But putting Vader back aside before he falls apart anymore, I'm going to bring out my drawer of hinges. As you can see, these didn't have a drawer before I started playing around with the mech, so they are actually in a drawer together, the hinges and the other sort of hook pieces. So I'll get out a few of my hinges. Now, I don't have any white hinges, if you can see just on the bottom there. Most of them are greys, light greys and sand coloured, and as this is a mech, and the Vader and Boba Fett mech use this dark bluish grey piece for the fixed arms and legs, I will be going with dark bluish grey hinge pieces. And also the Stormtrooper mech uses light grey and sand coloured, is very close to the white, so dark bluish grey will stand out just that bit more, especially against the mostly white and even the black Lego bricks on the arm. We also might need some extra pieces just to reinforce the arms and legs, and for this I have prepared these 1x3 dark bluish grey tiles just to reinforce it where it needs to. And you could perhaps even use the button styled pieces and put them on the back, but let's get straight into modifying this mech and giving him at least bendable arms. So perhaps I should be talking through this process, but all I've done is taken off the arm pieces, making sure I'm leaving them as they were built on the arm, and taking one of these dark bluish grey hinge pieces, trying to keep the arms, as I said, intact as much as possible. They should come off pretty easily into their two segments, that then would normally go on top of this piece here. However, I will be using this hinge piece and just putting it hinge inside on, well, underneath the arm pieces, and they should go on pretty flush. And what you can notice is on this hinge piece here, there actually is no gap between the black elements on the arm, and it looks a bit nicer than on the white. And even when we fold it again, you've got the same angled connection of that white piece, but it just allows you to have a straight arm. And as I said, this piece does fall off, so for the arms I'm going to reinforce it with just a simple 1x3 dark bluish grey. But in all honesty, you could whack a button piece there, or even use a little corner slope, really anything. But the reason I'm using a dark bluish grey 1x3 is so that I can still attach weapons and accessories to this part of the hand without it sticking out too far. But we'll see that more so with the other arm, and as you can see, that 1x3 just holds all the pieces in place, and again is the same thickness to that piece that Lego use, being 2 plates thick, so it doesn't make it look much different to the original model. Now I'm just going to do the same with the other arm, and I'll explain what I was talking about earlier with the accessories. So when it comes to removing the accessories, as I say in my review, the weapon does just pop off, which is so nice for customizing it, as all these pieces just come off in their chunks, leaving the arm piece that we're removing behind quite easily. And again, we've got that hinge piece ready. Make sure you are putting the hinge round the right way. Again, when it's straight, the hinge should be on the inside of the arm where it's curving up, and we'll just attach the top of the arm. And now once we reinforce it with this 1x3, you can see there's still that gap just by my thumb where I said the accessories will be going, and just like this we'll remove these 2 underside slope pieces, as the weapons aren't really that fragile. I suppose if you really wanted to, you could grab this 1x1 dark bluish grey, or any colour really, it will be pretty well hidden, and put this just next to that gap there. So as you can see, what I've done is put this dark bluish grey 1x1 tile there, just to create a flat surface for the gun to stick to, and it holds it in its hand pretty well. Perhaps what you could even do, just to allow the fingers to curve around that bit more, is put this weapon directly on that 1x3 plate just installed, and that allows the trooper to grip the weapon just that much better, and even the thumb to support it. Now if you wanted the weapon up a little more, always adjust how the weapon is gripped. So take this bottom black piece off the weapon, this goes with the lightsabers as well. Take the bottom ring piece off, push the Technic pin out, and you just want to assemble it the opposite way, so that rather than putting the light bluish grey piece on first, you put the black piece on, and that just gives it an extra block of height to go over that thumb. As I have been playing with Lego for many years, I mean it's like a decade and a half at this point, it does allow me to do these little things as I'm building, and I hadn't planned this before the video, but I'm able to make this change on the fly because I'm experienced with these bricks, and perhaps some of you spot ways to improve this even further, and be sure to do so on your own models. Once again, we attach the arm just like so, trying not to pop off any of the other pieces, and there we are. We have 2 arms that can be straightened, and this is probably how I'm going to leave my mech once I'm done recording. But I did promise that I'll show you how to customize the leg joints as well. But if we take a look at the arms quickly, you can see it's out straight and curves very easily, getting that angle that Lego have designed this mech to have. Now it'd be nice if you get a 90-degree angle, and of course if you adjusted what you had on the arm, perhaps some mechs are able to have that 90 degrees. However, with the pieces used here, obviously it was designed to have these white pieces. Quite nice that we can get any sort of bending action, and I think this is how they should have sold the mech. Now I'm no Lego designer, so I don't know exactly why they choose to go with this new piece, but I think these hinge joints are better than the ball joints, And even if they created some new hinge piece that would allow for a bit more movement, or even just to cover the bottom more and make it look a bit flush, perhaps create the white hinge if they haven't already, but I'm sure that element exists. And as you can see, it just allows for a bit more movability and different poses, like with Vader's Force Choke. Obviously the Stormtrooper does not have the Force. Especially if you're designing your own custom mechs, I definitely recommend adding a hinge to the arm. But let's try with the legs. Alright, onto the legs. Straight away we do have a problem with the hinge. If we put the hinge in the same place we did for the arms, it doesn't actually allow much movement because they have filled in the gap. Where there was a gap on the arms, they have filled that in completely, and we're left with this little movability. So we will have to put the hinge on the other side, like so, and it means that when the legs do bend, there will be a bigger gap behind. However, as you saw with the arms, you can add a wedge plate and maybe even a wedge brick on the top just to cover this gap, and it will look just like the arms. Another problem is also, as you're taking up this space with the hinge piece, there is no space for the boot to attach to it, but for now we'll put it just on top and see if it can hold up the mech. And there we go, we've got the legs built as well. Now they are very, very fragile without a complete overhaul of the build. Perhaps at some point I will completely overhaul the legs and create my own ones. However, for now, I think this is good enough just to show how not stable they are on these hinges for the legs. And I do see why Lego used the new pieces that we were given. And I don't really think there's any need to bend the legs. I mean, I've even put the joints on the wrong way, but even when straight, the build is so hard to hold up, and any sort of force, the hinges just move so easily under pressure. They're able to somehow hold up the weapon, and the weapon doesn't seem to be flopping if it's upside down. But when holding up the entire build, hinges just don't do it, and they just can't stand up properly. And even when they can, if I was to jog the table at all, the build would just fall down. So I think that I'll definitely be putting them white bricks back on the legs, and then we'll compare them to the magazines. And now we are left with the ultimate Stormtrooper mech. Again, as I said, you can do the exact same with Vader and Boba Fett, and the gun does actually hold up very well in this position. It's not the strongest, but it's strong enough to not fall down unless you really rattle it, and even then it doesn't fall all the way. And this build is just amazing for all the different poses you can do. As I said, Vader reaching out with a force, or maybe a trooper with his gun down. And I think this would be the way Lego should move forward with their mechs. Just add a hinge or add some sort of joint in the elbow. The legs are amazing as they are more sturdy with these pieces. And I just love the way these mechs are built, and are definitely not going to deconstruct this one. Perhaps I can even rebuild the mechs that I do have. I think I have a Miles, a Wolverine and a Thor mech with these new pieces, and see just how good they look. But I'm really looking forward to get more of these mechs in the new year. Hopefully we get some Rebels ones or clones. Clones would be amazing. But now time to compare it to the magazine and find out which one is worth it, especially if you're buying them for retail price. So let's get these opened up, and then we'll talk about it straight after. And here we have the 3 Stormtroopers built from the magazine. Now each magazine does set you back, I think, $4.99, so you are spending slightly more for these 3 Stormtroopers than you are for the mech, which comes in at $12.99 compared to the $14.97 that you're paying for these. However, you are also getting a build with this figure that does come with a load of new and exclusive pieces, as something like this torso piece will probably not see another build. So from the top, what do I think is worth it? I'm going to have to go with the Stormtrooper mech. Even without my customization, I think these mechs are just so cool. And to get a character with another sort of bigger character, I do prefer this to the other buildable figures that have been introduced in Marvel. And especially with all the pieces, even if you don't decide to keep the mech, the pieces alone, there's some really interesting pieces here. Again, like I say, some exclusive pieces like this tile I'll definitely be using for some Imperial office at some point soon. If we get to see Yularen and all the other ISB agents in Andor Season 2, I'm going to have to make a diorama or some sort of build with this piece. But until then, I'm definitely keeping this mech built to display. Now, in terms of value, if we leave these figures here and go over to Bricklink, here you can see we've got the page of the female dual molded helmet with grey squares on the back, shoulder belts, nugget head, frown, Imperial Stormtrooper. This is the exact one that we get both in the mech and the polybag. If you saw whilst I was building them, I did show off the head, and one of my comments did point out from my last video that it has been used on a few other Imperial troops, but this is the first time it's been used for a Stormtrooper. And you can see down here where it says new, it sells for an average of $8.43. Now, this has only been sold 9 times, and there is a total of 23 of them that have been put up in the last 6 months. Obviously, it's a new trooper, so this will be counting for all of the Stormtroopers that have been sold. And currently there is actually 28. Now, the average price has been sold for $8.43. I think that's a lot of money, especially when not only is it new, but you've also got it in a £5 magazine. For about £4 more than this, you can get the mech. And the most it's been sold for is actually $19.61, which is nearly double what the mech costs you, but the lowest is $5.77. As I said, this magazine is only $4.99. So of course, if you just want the minifigure, you're best off trying to find the magazine rather than heading to Bricklink. And as you can see, all of the figures that have been sold, so they're around the 5, 6, 7 price mark. You've got 2 at about a tenner, one of which bought 5. So this store was probably the only one that had so many of them. And it probably is best paying a little extra with the single delivery fee than buying them from a load of different places and paying each delivery fee, which will come to at least £2-3 more than what the figure costs. This one here for 20 quid, this is absolutely outrageous. I don't know what was going on here. Perhaps they didn't see the one at the start. But if you want the minifigure, pick up the magazine, or at least try to before going on Bricklink. But how does this fare up to the mech? Well, the mech does include the minifigure, so you're already looking at the £5 of the magazine towards the mech. Now, if we head to Rebrickable, where I do have all my custom instructions, so I will leave this link down below, as well as a link to all of my mocks. And you can scroll down on the set to the inventory where it shows off all 138 parts that are used in building this mech. Or at least 138 different pieces, as there are 55 different parts. And you can see just at the top, the approximate cost of these parts is $12.73. Now, I'm sure each of you, like me, will have our own way of buying all these different pieces, and perhaps you'll have some of them in your collection already. But you can see there's 134 total quantity of pieces compared to the 138 it says up here, and that is because 4 of these pieces go towards the Stormtrooper, and I'm pretty sure if we scroll it, the minifigures are not counted, or instead listed under the minifigures, and they are the 4 parts that we are missing. Of course, the legs and torso only showing up in the polybag, this set, and the trash compactor diorama. So all of these pieces cost about $12.73, and if you were to add on the £5 from the magazine, you are looking at £17.72, which for a $12.99 set is definitely worth picking it up from Lego, as well as the 5% back insider points you'll be getting. So there we go, the Mech is the superior way of getting this new Stormtrooper as well as all the other pieces, and the fact that most of these are exclusive pieces, such as this Imperial piece here, which you can't even buy, it's not even added this value to the list, just goes to show how much this set will be worth in the future. Even this piece here, which is new for all three of the mechs, is not included. So you're definitely getting your money's worth. You're getting about 1.5 times your value by buying the Mech. And even if you wanted to piece it out and sell it on Bricklink or another third-party site, I do encourage you to get this Mech as an easiest way, or at least the most money efficient, of getting the new Stormtrooper. And of course, if you have the grey hinge pieces, do be sure to copy my modification. Perhaps I will leave some sort of instruction or indication up on Rebrickable, and it's definitely a lot cheaper than buying this minifigure off Bricklink, especially if you're going to be paying nearly 20 quid when there is a £12.99 set out. But I hope you learned something in this video and are enjoying all my content, both Lego and Star Wars. And do let me know if you are going to modify the Mech for the arm joints, as I'd love to hear if anyone is deciding to use my ideas. I'll also be leaving a poll in my community tab, which I see a load of yous voting on, which is great to see. Actually, I'll be leaving 2 polls, one asking which you'd prefer, the magazine or the Mech, and also another poll asking which joints you'd prefer, so be sure to check them out. And subscribe for more similar content. Don't forget to like the video, and may the bricks be with you always.